The Ravens Preview Show with Andy Pollin starts right now.
It wasn't perfect, it wasn't pretty, but it was the Ravens.
Listen to all Ravens broadcasts right here on 6:30 a.m., the ESPN 630 app, or ESPN630DC.com.
And with 1:17 left to play, the Hayes in the barn.
Now, here's Andy Pollin.
And when we do this on Fridays, it's almost always Ravens preview, but in this case, it's Ravens review after their win last night over the Cincinnati Bengals. We are joined by, and I'm going to try and get this right because it says on the email, his name is Kyle J. Andrews of Baltimore Sports and Life. Do you include the J when you introduce yourself?
Usually I do, because there is actually there's another Kyle Andrews that's a singer, and that's definitely not me. So,
see, and that's how hip I am. Is Kyle Andrews known as a singer? Pretty well known?
No.
Oh, okay.
but he shows up on searches all the time. So, for SEO purposes, I had to add the J in.
Very good. Okay, and you're with Baltimore Sports and Life, and people can access that where? How do they get that?
Yes, so you could go to BaltimoreSportsAndLife.com, where I cover the Ravens. I do a podcast called The Bank with Jamie Seek and Christopher Stoner. So we also do that podcast every Tuesday or Wednesday. Just depends on the week.
Yeah, it depends on the schedule, which is altered with a game last night. You were at the Bank last night to see the game? You were there?
I was actually not at the Bank last night. I've covered a lot of the games more from like an analytical perspective, but from what I can tell, it was loud. It was incredibly loud. It actually reminded me. Oh, I'm sorry.
No, go ahead, because I have something that I'd like to say about the crowd as well. Go ahead with your thought.
So I used to cover Penn State football, and so everyone knows about the whiteout with Penn State. It reminded me a lot of that from how loud it was. I mean, it obviously affected Joe Burrow a couple of times, affected Jake Browning a handful of times. So it seemed like that, the crowd was back to its old self. I know Ravens fans in the past couple of months have been kind of upset with some of the PSL owners that have, that are a little older at this point, not to be ageist, but they, they're not going to be standing up at the front of the crowd. So, I mean, it's been a bunch of, gripes about that, but yeah. I think that they showed yesterday that they can be as loud as they want to be. So
yeah, no question. And go ahead and be ageist, because I've been watching football for 60 years, and I can't remember a time where I saw a team call 2 timeouts in the first half because of crowd noise. And back in the day, a quarterback could come to the line, and if it was too loud, he'd get the referee to just stop the clock until the crowd calmed down. I guess the rules have changed, and the crowd actually caused the Bengals to burn 2 first-half timeouts. I thought they really set the tone for that game in doing that, didn't you?
I totally agree. I think that when you have a crowd that plays into a game, that causes some, maybe not necessarily intimidation, but if you can't hear a lot of the calls coming in, I mean, you can't play the game. So if you can't play the game, you can't win the game. And I feel like the Ravens fans in Baltimore got them out of their element and caused a number of issues. And, you could see that at the line with the play calls coming in. So I think that they did exactly what they were supposed to do as fans.
No question. We're talking to Kyle J. Andrews of Baltimore Sports and Life. Ravens win last night over Cincinnati, 34-20. They score points. The defense was very good. The Bengals were 2 of 11 on third downs, though some of it was against Jake Browning because Joe Burrow went out with a sprained wrist. And I think that this game for Ravens fans, while it is a great win and it gives them a 2-game lead, you got to leave it feeling a little bit sick to your stomach because Mark Andrews is likely to miss the rest of the season. How big a loss is that for Baltimore?
It's a gigantic loss. And, we, as much as people say that Lamar is the catalyst for the offense, Mark Andrews is a catalyst for the offense. He's the number 2 guy on this offense. Just when you think of the Chiefs, you think of, Patrick Mahomes and Travis Kelce. With the Ravens, is Lamar Jackson and Mark Andrews. I mean, it's a tight end quarterback combo that I think is, either one or two in the league between the two of those combos. And when you lose Mark Andrews, sorry, that's my dog. She's barking in the background.
That's all right.
Mark Andrews is such a key component of this Ravens offense. And when you lose someone like him, you lose an offensive hub. It's like having Nikola Jokic out there being able to dime things out. But he's the type of guy that, because the defense is so focused in on Mark Andrews, because they're so focused in on Lamar Jackson, between the two of those guys, that allows other players to get open a lot more. And you could see that, when Mark went out, they had to start spreading the ball around a little bit more. But, I think his absence allows other players to be able to step up. Isaiah Likely, Charlie Kolar, two guys that they drafted last season or prior to last season, guys that we thought were going to take a pretty big step this upcoming year, especially considering that Charlie missed the entire season last year, if I'm not mistaken. And, Isaiah Likely was used more as a wide receiver plus, I would say.
Right.
So we'll see what happens. I think they'll probably call up. It would only make sense if they called up Travis Vokolek. He was a guy that stood out during preseason camp. So we'll see what he can do potentially. Some people were calling for Gronk. That's not happening.
No.
Rob Gronkowski's 220 pounds. He would have to bulk up 30 pounds in a span of a couple weeks. It's not going to happen.
Right,
so.
right. And let me ask you this, because we know that this was a year where we were told, okay, Lamar doesn't have to run as much. This would seem that it would make it more likely he'll be running more, because this is a guy you can hit on short yardage and inside the red zone and things like that. I guess, though, the one encouraging thing is, at least for now, and you keep your fingers crossed, Odell Beckham's healthy. He had 4 catches last night, and this is what we were projecting going into the season, that if he can come around by the end of the year, that's going to be a big lift. So the question to you is, with Lamar likely running more and perhaps a healthy Odell, can they make up for the difference that Mark Andrews leaves behind?
It'll be hard to, but I think with not just Odell and Lamar, but Zay Flowers, I mean, he's been outstanding this year as a rookie. He's had a huge impact on this offense. And then not to mention, I mean, I know a lot of people in Philadelphia would probably say that Nelson Aguilar, he's become a punching bag in Philadelphia and maybe one in Oakland, or I guess in Vegas and New England as well. But with the Ravens, he's been pretty good. He's done exactly what he's supposed to do. I mean, he's the 4th receiver, for crying out loud, and he's been as good as he can be. So, for them to have that kind of depth at the receiver position, this is unprecedented for the Ravens. They have never had this type of depth at the receiver position. Maybe the closest has come was, that 2010 season when they had Derek Mason, Anquan Bolden, and T.J. Houshmandzadeh, who were all in the twilight of their career. So I think this is a totally different Ravens receiving group. They're more dynamic. They're guys that can, get open on their own, especially on short passing plays. We saw that a ton with Odell Beckham. This is the second time, if I'm not mistaken, that Odell Beckham has been able, and Zay Flowers, both of those guys have gotten involved where they toss it to them on short pass plays, and then they just make things happen.
Yeah.
Not to mention, you also have Keaton Mitchell, who is a rookie running back who is as dynamic as they come, and he's been able to, increase their attack on the passing side. So on screen passes, which they haven't had in almost a decade, I would say. So very different Ravens offense, but it's going to take a lot, all hands on deck approach to make up for Andrews, but I think they have the pieces to do it.
Yeah, well, the good thing for them is that they get 10 days off before they go to Los Angeles to play the Chargers, and then they have a bye week after that. So between now and December 10th, they're only playing one game. So while they won't get Mark Andrews back, it appears, the other bumps and bruises, they got a chance to heal up for this big stretch where they're going to play the Jaguars, the 49ers, the Dolphins, and the Steelers to close out the regular season. So it lines up well in that respect, but boy, that is a big loss last night, losing Mark Andrews. Good to talk to you. Thank you so much for the time.
Thank you as well. I appreciate it.
That is Kyle J. Andrews, who's from Baltimore Sports and Life, on the Ravens' victory last night. Coming up, Scott Van Pelt talked to Damian Woody last night about the victory, what John Harbaugh said about the fans, and what Lamar Jackson said about losing his security blanket in Andrews. We'll talk about that and more as we continue with Ravens Preview on ESPN 630.
Ravens on 3, 1, 2, 3.
This is the Ravens Preview Show presented by Verizon. Here's Andy Pollin.
Well, the preview is for the game on the 26th when they play at, used to be San Diego. I clutched on that. It's the Chargers in Los Angeles, but the Chargers have a game in between, and the Ravens are through for the week after taking care of the Bengals last night. 34-20. They are 8-3 on the year, first team in the AFC to get to 8 wins, and they have a 2-game lead in the division. But the problem is they have lost their star tight end, Mark Andrews, likely for the year, according to Coach John Harbaugh, who spoke after the game. This was Scott Van Pelt on SportsCenter last night with Damian Woody on what this means to the Ravens as they try and plow through the rest of the season.
They were looking for an ability to flush what happened last week against Cleveland. They do that. Big picture, injury aside, if we can even do that. I mean, I don't know that you can move past
I don't
that.
think you can dismiss.
How significant is the Andrews injury?
Huge. It's like, Kelsey with Patrick Mahomes. He is literally Lamar Jackson's, wide receiver one. I know he's a tight end, but he's
you just said it, yeah.
He's number one receiver for the Baltimore Ravens, and we know what Mark Andrews means to Lamar Jackson in that offense, particularly in the red zone. Mm-hmm. So anytime you take a player of that caliber out, it drastically changes what the Baltimore Ravens want to do.
So it changes how you feel about them, even though they are at 8-3. We see, they're going to be a playoff team, barring some cataclysmic meltdown. But is this the type of thing that alters the way you perceive them in the AFC?
I think you have to look at it like that. He's that impactful, to their offense. So, you start looking at the AFC going forward, this thing could very well go through Arrowhead again.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Who can go into Arrowhead and win? You take Mark Andrews out of the equation for the Baltimore Ravens, that's a big-time blow offensively for that offense. Do they have enough to go into Arrowhead in the playoffs and win a game like that?
Well, the one thing that they've got going for them is a healthy quarterback. And, yes, Kansas City still has that. But you look around the league, yes, Miami is leading the East, and Tua is still upright. Buffalo's got a quarterback in Josh Allen who's healthy but is an interception machine. And if you look at the division, Cleveland has lost its quarterback for the rest of the year. Pittsburgh still has theirs, and there's a big question about Cincinnati, and they bury themselves further in the division with the loss, but whether or not Joe Burrow is going to be able to come back from this wrist injury. So while it is likely, as you hear Woody say, that they could play in Kansas City, it does look like they will have a fairly easy path to the playoffs, and with some rest that they're going to get, with the next game being the 26th, and then a bye week for the stretch run, Jaguars, 49ers on the road, Dolphins at home, and the Steelers at home. If they can win 2 of those 4 games, they should be in pretty good shape heading into the playoffs. This is John Harbaugh, who revealed about the injury with what's going to happen with Andrews and likely out for the rest of the year, but really enamored with what he saw from the crowd last night as they caused Cincinnati to call 2 timeouts in the first half because of the noise.
Our fans were really great. Our fans were loud. They had to take delay games. They had a tough time communicating out there. They couldn't get lined up numerous times as a result of the crowd noise. Our fans were there. It was fun. It was a great environment to be in. The stadium people that put the stadium together and all the fireworks and lights and everything else and darkness. It was really just an amazing night. It was just a fun night in Baltimore. So our team played exceptionally well, and I'm proud of them for finding a way to win this game, play their best football.
few things from Lamar Jackson. This is about the victory and what it means to the team.
A must win. We really needed that after the defeat to the Browns, what we went through Sunday, few days ago. But I like how our team responded and bounced back. Thursday night under this crazy crowd we had, it was electrifying tonight. I think I had to tell them calm down a little bit. Our crowd it was outrageous tonight, and we enjoyed it. But we're looking forward. We're looking forward to it, throughout the season.
Well, here's what's left at home. They, on the 10th, will play the Rams. They play the 49ers on Christmas Day, actually Christmas night. It's an 8:15 kickoff, and then they close out with 2 at home. So it is a loaded home schedule the rest of the way. They've got the Dolphins on New Year's Eve, 1 o'clock game, and then January 7th, the game against the Steelers, which could be another night game, depending on what happens with Pittsburgh and how well they get back in the mix. They're winning somehow, some way, not very much offense, but they're finding ways to win. And if they can continue to do that, that could shape up as possibly a division title game, although it would take the Ravens probably falling back a little bit. But Pittsburgh now 6-3 on the year, and the Ravens are now 8-3 on the year with a 2-game lead. More from Lamar. This is how he's going to have to go the rest of the way, likely without his security blanket, his tight end, Mark Andrews, who's likely to miss the year.
I was just telling the crew out there, the primetime crew or whatever, that's the guy who I, entered the league with. We've been bread and butter, peanut butter and jelly, whatever you want to call it. But that's very tough because that's my boy. That's like receiver one sometimes, and for him to go out first quarter, and he's been having a remarkable year, 1 touchdown away from a record, I think. That's tough, man. But we gotta somehow do it without him. We got Likely, we got Charlie, we got guys who are gonna step up, but it's tough.
Yeah, but it's the next man up, right? That's the book that John Feinstein wrote about with the season with the Ravens. He called it Next Man Up, and now they lose one of their star players. Fortunately for Lamar, and he went out with what looked like a similar injury. They had to take him into the blue tent. They looked at him. He wanted to get back on the field. They finally let him back. He played the rest of the game. How hurt he was, we don't know. He's not saying, but he's claiming that he's okay. He looked okay in finishing the game, but we'll have to see how well he is to play in 10 days at Los Angeles against the Chargers. Here's his take on the injury from last night.
I'm trying to get back out there. I'm telling them I'm good, but they're going to do what they do to try to get us back on that field fast as they could, but I'm good.
How many pad on your ankle?
Second?
You were wearing a blue sort of wrap on your ankle. Was that heat?
Yeah, it was a heat pack. But I'm good. We need to start talking about this ankle. I'm good. You see, I just walked up here. I'm good. We ain't going to talk nothing into existence, speak nothing into existence. I'm good.
Yeah, he doesn't want anybody targeting the ankle. So, don't talk. It's like Fight Club. You don't talk about Fight Club. You don't talk about injury. And he does have the ability to still run on it. So how he's going to look. And again, the way the schedule sets up with just one game between now and December 10th, that should bode pretty well for them as they move forward. A couple more stats from last night as they continue to run the ball pretty well. They got a good game out of Gus Edwards. He had 12 carries for 62 yards and 2 touchdowns on the day. Healthy Odell Beckham could make a big difference for them. He's been sort of in and out of the lineup because of injuries. He had 4 catches for 116 yards last night, including a 51-yarder. Zay Flowers had a solid year all year long as a rookie, 3 catches for 43 yards, and only 1 catch for Nelson Aguilar. But if you were watching the game, or as I was listening to the game, this was really a crazy play. It was a ball that bounced off of linebacker Jermaine Pratt and right into the hands of Aguilar, who caught it on the run and went in 37 yards for the touchdown and did a flip into the end zone. So a little luck helps there as well. And Lamar had one of his big games. He was, 16 of 26, 264 yards, and a QBR of 70.5 on the game, and also ran the ball 9 times for 54 yards. That's 6 yards a carry. Having a running quarterback is such an advantage, and he is having a year where he's in the conversation for MVP. But the Ravens get to 8-3 with the win. They've got the weekend off, and then we'll head to Los Angeles to to play the Chargers. Want to thank very much for coming on the show Kyle J. Andrews of Baltimore Sports and Life. He also does a podcast on the Ravens. And thanks to Bubba Jenkins, who is going to be fighting for the featherweight MMA championship coming up at Anthem, which is a week from today, down on the wharf. Thanks to Rex Minturn for running the show. Thanks to all of you who listened. We got a Ravenless weekend with them playing last night, but there's plenty of other things to look at in sports this weekend, and hope you enjoy. Enjoy the weekend. Tony's coming up next. I'll see you back here Monday morning at 9 a.m.